Welcome to season 3, episode 2. Um, this is the Experience.Travel show, and we're happy to be here today. I'm Lori Timoney, and I'm with Go City. And I'd like to let my co-host introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to our guest for today. Bruce?
Thanks, Lori. Bruce Rosard, one of the co-founders of Arrival. Really excited about the show with some breaking news about TikTok and, of course, AI, because it's Experience This, and we love AI, and we have a new guest to talk about that, and really excited about both of our guests. But first, we'll let Christian intro himself.
Yep, Christian Watts with Magpie Travel. And I think, the interesting thing about today, we're going to talk about TikTok and AI. And interestingly, I think they are the future, not the only future, but vertical video. Maybe we shouldn't call it TikTok anymore, but vertical video and AI are definitely going to be the source of our content going forward. So we've got two fantastic guests today. If I could jump first to Tahnee and give you guys a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Thanks, Christian. Tahnee Perry, the founder of A25, an AI advisory company. I help folks integrate AI into their companies and teams, and really excited to be here. I've been a loyal listener to Experience This for a long time, and I feel like the secret to this show is making fun of or disagreeing with Bruce. And so if I can just pull that off, then I think we'll be going along with the theme of the show.
Well, we've known each other for long enough, Tahnee, that you're not going to have a problem with that. I have Maddie.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for having me. I am the CEO and founder of Mount. We bridge the gap between short-term rental hosts and operators and local business operators so that you can work together. Partly here today to talk about some TikTok breaking news. Our whole go-to-market strategy for the last year and a half has been all organic social. So we have put $0 behind our marketing and advertising and have reached millions of people doing it. So needless to say, the breaking news has some impact to us as well.
Yeah, so that's a really good place to start. So obviously, I don't know exactly what time it was this morning, Eastern time, but we heard the news that the Supreme Court decided to uphold the ban on TikTok. And from what I understand, January 19th is kind of D-Day when things will change. And I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is what do we think is actually going to change. Maddie, to your point, you've had a huge focus on TikTok in driving your growth. So can you maybe give us some idea of kind of what percentage of your overall revenue that you do is, because of TikTok? So maybe a sense of just how much you actually are using it.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I'd say TikTok is our entire sales pipeline at the moment. So any revenue that comes in, is not like being facilitated on TikTok itself, like businesses actually sell on there, but it is our entire sales funnel at the moment.
So
Okay.
TikTok, sorry, Lori, not Instagram and YouTube Shorts or other vertical formats. It's when you say it's not just Mount, it's your entire army of content creators that you've developed, and they're all on TikTok exclusively?
Not exclusively, but I think TikTok is the platform in the social media realm that really was built, whether it was intentional or not, it's a community building platform, and it's where small businesses and startups, and honestly big brands too, have seen the most success growing as fast as you can. Instagram, it's not set up the same way. Instagram was set up because they wanted money on advertising. It's harder for your videos to go viral. It's not community oriented. And so, I won't come on here and say our audience is completely on TikTok. We're not that silly. Like, we did diversify and we put our videos on Instagram and YouTube, but TikTok has been the most success for us.
So it's interesting and I think it would be really, again, helpful to maybe talk a little bit about breaking that down a bit. So as I understand it, TikTok is this, as you noted, it's a platform that is very user friendly, builds community, and it engages people to the degree where they just literally are on it a lot of times for hours at a time, as you know. Where I understand Instagram tends to be, it's just more, like you said, it's there's more going on there, you know, and it has the ability to take people's attention away. But maybe you can just talk a little bit about why you think TikTok is, you know, add to that a little bit and talk about why you think TikTok is where creators are having kind of the greatest level of success, and why maybe just moving to Instagram Reels is not necessarily going to be the answer for businesses.
Yeah, I think for businesses and just in general, it comes down to two things. The first thing that differentiates TikTok from any other app is the algorithm. And that is the secret sauce. No one, not even Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, has figured out how TikTok's algorithm works. And the algorithm is basically what curates the videos you see. And it's so personalized where it's like, if I see one video about, I'm like a big gardener, which is funny because I live in New York, plants. And so I'll just start seeing gardening videos, and there's influencers in that space who I have like come to know over the last 2 years, and it feels so personal. That's a big part of it. And then the second piece, which is actually more nuanced and it's on a business level, is how the platforms are set up to make money. So TikTok has no problem with making videos go viral, and they aren't going to suppress it and make you pay to have it go viral. Like, it's very organic, because TikTok makes a majority of its money off of TikTok Shop, which is what allows you to sell things. And it's kind of like Amazon if Amazon had video attached to it. Instagram's the complete opposite. They don't want your videos going viral organically because they want to get your money via ads to promote it, and then it will get views. And so that's really the main difference. And it's really hard to go viral on Instagram because of that reason. But then Instagram's algorithm for Instagram Reels, they don't really have one. So I don't know if you notice when you scroll on Instagram through Reels, it's not feeding you content you actually want to see. It's just kind of any content that's out there, and it doesn't feel personalized.
I have to disagree. So, and maybe I'm like the voice of dissent here. I'm already on theme. So, I'm an Instagram fan, and I really dislike TikTok. And I have used both, and I've tried to train the TikTok algorithm, and I always go back to Instagram because it knows me. It shows me the most content that I like. So that's where I live. And I also, because I knew we were going to talk about TikTok, I polled my travel advisor community to see how they feel about the TikTok ban. And granted, this is not scientific, and Christian could poke all kinds of holes in this data, but most people weren't that worried. And the reason they said that is because a lot of their business is coming from Facebook and Instagram and not TikTok. So I think the answer is it depends. It depends on your business and also your personal preferences, because there's obviously a segment of folks who are fine with Instagram and they're getting business from there, and not so much TikTok.
Yeah, and Maddie, would you agree that the businesses that are probably going to be most impacted would be some of the more kind of unique experiential type of businesses, smaller businesses, businesses that are focused on kind of the Gen Z traveler, versus, you know, to your point, Tahnee, businesses that are more like, you know, the bigger travel hotel, they can pivot, you know, relatively easy, but the smaller businesses. Bruce, do you use TikTok at Arrival? Do you happen to know if you're utilizing it at all?
We're starting to, and I keep pushing the team to do it more, which I guess they know I won't bother them starting today for at least a little while. But I think it's really important. I think, you know, I'm not sure who Tahnee surveyed to say, oh no, Insta stories will be fine, or whatever. TikTok is obviously the up and coming way for companies, including companies and experiences, to get more business. And as soon as the conversion gets connected to TikTok, like is happening in Asia and the project that Kluk has been working on with TikTok directly, there's room for explosion, and it's going to be there. But I also think like we've kind of taken a step from, there was a Supreme Court decision that is shutting down TikTok. And what does that mean? And, you know, I've been looking into this a little bit. You know, is it a First Amendment deal? Well, not really, because it's national security. And the concern is the data. And that is what creates, you know, makes the algorithm go, right? Is TikTok has all of our data, and then their super secret, amazing algorithm puts the videos in front of us. And so the concern is the data of 150 million users, or however many are using it, is in the Chinese hands now. And that's a national security risk, apparently. And then I heard this, just one more thing, that there are people trying to buy TikTok, American companies trying to buy TikTok. And someone offered, you know what, we'll buy TikTok without the algorithm, because
That wouldn't even be a thing.
Yeah, why?
because that's the only way it'll get sold. They're
Yeah,
not
and
going
not
to
to buy it.
they're not
Investors
going to
won't let 'em
sell
buy
the
it.
algorithm.
Their
No, they're not
investors
gonna sell
won't
the
let 'em
algorithm.
buy
It's
it.
too
I don't
expensive.
think it's going to happen.
I don't.
No,
To me, I don't see. I know everyone. The algorithm. I kind of agree with Tony. My Reels is as good as my TikTok as far as showing me what I expect to see. I think the reason TikTok's better is somehow or another they are better at spying on their users and listening and learning, because they're not restricted by anything whatsoever, which is exactly why we're in this situation, right? I
So
don't
are they
think.
just going away all of a sudden? The
Well,
#1 app for all
I don't think
video.
it's going to go away. I think what's going to happen, Bruce, is, well, actually, let's ask Maddie, because from what I understand, that once this happens, it probably won't be available anymore in the iTunes app, but then it's not going to just go away completely if you've already got the app. So Maddie, maybe you can just
well,
talk a little bit about what will change.
they said they're going to go dark.
They're going
Yeah,
dark.
so
That's what they said.
TikTok basically put the onus on the United States, and they're like, you can't keep punting this. You need to make a decision. If you don't, and if you don't make any advances to figure this situation out, we're going completely dark on Sunday, which basically means if you open the TikTok app, it's going to open to a black screen and it's not going to work.
Okay.
And so that's looking like what is going to happen, but there's really interesting nuances, because yes, the Senate proposed this, the Supreme Court upheld it. Biden's administration, because he's in for one day between like when this went live and when Trump takes over, said they're not doing anything with it. They're not going to enforce it. But really the real implications here are it's on, the app stores. Oracle, I think, is the one that's hosting the data, but don't quote me on that because I sometimes get names wrong. But anyways, those are the companies that are going to get fined if the federal government does decide to enforce this. But there's also a world in which Trump doesn't want to enforce it. And so, like, yes, the Supreme Court passed it, but, stuff still happens. I mean, that's what happened with weed, right? Colorado said, yeah, we'll legalize it. The federal government said no, and nothing was ever enforced. It's kind of still happening. So lots of nuances. The thing about the sale is completely ridiculous, because they offered, I think the latest price was like 20 billion or something without the algorithm, which means they're just buying the data because they want all of the users' data so that they can migrate it over to their platform, which would be Meta or X, whatever it is. And those billionaires can benefit even more. The whole deal with national security, if you actually read into it, I think it's a total like smokescreen, not something I would use as an argument. But yeah, it's frustrating. And I brought some numbers with me too, just so we can contextualize this to the people watching this, where this is affecting 7 million business owners who use TikTok as their main source of revenue. So like small business owners inside the US. Last year, they did $12 billion for the small businesses. So that's all money that's going to be going
Are
away.
those mostly creators, Maddie?
No, those are businesses. So those are people that sell a physical good or a service.
Okay.
That's not creator money. And then additionally, in 2023, it created 300,000 jobs for people within the US. So I don't know if they've thought about all these massive implications, what's going to happen to the economy. I mean, these are people's jobs. Everyone that works for TikTok USA is now like, okay, you just took my job away. I didn't get fired. I didn't get laid off. It just simply doesn't exist anymore.
So I got
TikTok.
two things to say. One is the assumption is those jobs go to Reels, and all those user minutes just move. Number two, though, is I don't see any argument at all why it's not a security problem for the US. I don't understand how. I don't understand there's an argument where it's not a problem. How do you defend
I would say if it was a
that?
problem, they would have banned Meta, because Meta was definitely influencing the 2016 presidential election. They were selling corrupt ads to other people outside the US. Like, there's a lot of nuances, but I think because Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are in the pockets and have now gotten into the political scheme. You know, they're controlling a lot. And from their perspective, TikTok is eating into their margins, it's eating into their revenue, and they have the ability to control what's going on and shut TikTok down. And it's going to benefit them too the most.
Well, I
So
think it's definitely, there is something, there's got to be something to be said about the fact that it's owned by a Chinese business, right? And, the data that they have, and I know supposedly they are saying that they don't use this data or they don't, but how does anyone prove that? That they don't use the data. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm against TikTok necessarily at all. I'm just saying that I have to side with Christian on this one. It's kind of like, how do you really know if it's not some kind of
If I could, I think we're a little out of our scope. Like there was a
Yeah.
Supreme Court decision. There's a government, like who the hell knows? This whole
Now
thing
what?
really
I guess the
started
question is now
before
what,
Elon
okay?
Musk was Trump's best friend or before Trump even won the election. So let's go back to the experiences business. If we could, I want to share one thing, if I could, on my screen, which I got from Maddie, and maybe you could tell us about this, Maddie. These are the top apps right now, or this, I don't know when you took this shot, Maddie, today, yesterday, the day before, but right away, people are jumping from TikTok to these other apps. Can you share, Maddie, what we're looking at here?
yeah, so that first one on there is an app called Red Note. So that is the actual Chinese version of TikTok, the one that is, very much a threat to national security. But, as a, I don't, pardon my language, a fuck you to the United States government, everyone on TikTok decided to flock to that app. It's not even in English, it's in Mandarin. And so there's been this kind of whole cultural revolution happening where, just 2 days ago, they had another 100,000 users jump to that app from TikTok that are US citizens. I think we crashed the app for a little. And people are welcoming, these new users with open arms. They're teaching Mandarin to the United States people. Like, there's just a lot of like cross-pollination happening. And I would say the fact that that app isn't banned and is allowed in the App Store kind of points to the fact that this is all crazy. Number two, Lemonade, I don't actually think is a great app. It's like Pinterest, but the most hilarious thing about that is it's owned by ByteDance. So it's a TikTok app as well. So I would assume that one also is going to be banned with what's going on just because it's kind of the same family. But I would say a lot of people don't know where to go. The followings aren't one-to-one. So for example, my company has 170,000 followers on TikTok, and we only have about 10,000 on Instagram. And we've been posting this entire week to our following on TikTok being like, hey, go follow us on Instagram. And the conversion is not happening. And it's because I don't think it is a one-to-one and people don't want to go to Instagram. So, a lot of these creators, built up their followings.
I don't see how you can say that though. I think it is a one-to-one, but it's not Sunday yet. So if it goes dark, then we'll know. But why would anyone jump? Because people still think Trump's going to save it the next day and whatever.
They're waiting
Anyone
for
spending time on this is going to get, this is, I think, probably already banned. It's not, this isn't a TikTok ban. This is a national security law to say these types of apps are illegal. And this, I think, attorney today would say is illegal. It's going to get shut down.
Okay,
We can't have these apps owned by the Chinese government. We just can't. We're not gonna.
maybe
It's not gonna
we should,
happen.
maybe we should talk a little bit before we, because we have a few more minutes before we're going to move over to AI. Maddie, so what is your plan at this point? What, like, you're obviously a business that, like, as you said, you're very, very much relying on TikTok. Now what? What are you going to do? I mean, obviously you're saying the conversion isn't happening yet. What's your plan?
It's a good question. Because the TikTok ban isn't like out of the blue, people have been talking about it for probably a year, I would say. We have been migrating and posting on pretty much every social platform. So, that's our plan. We'll keep moving forward and posting wherever people end up going to. New apps have been spun up to try and capture this demand that's just floating around right now. And I think really the amazing thing that came out of all of this is short format video. And I think that's going to continue. That's not a trend that's going away. And so that's really what we'll lean into, is the skills we've built over the last year and a half with this organic short format video style, and just see where we can take it with that.
Mandy, do you think it's worth it for companies and brands to start a presence on RedNote, or do you think it's not worth it because the community is predominantly in Mandarin, or there's a risk of it also being banned?
It's a very good question. I know personally for me, I probably will not be getting on RedNote, and I've heard a lot of brands say that it's not really worth their time right now because it's such a different audience. I would say it was more of a political statement what people were doing versus actually beneficial, but there's one company that benefited from it like crazy, and it is the app Duolingo. They're not in our space, but you know, actually, if anyone is listening, I would go check out their social media right now. Talk about a person, whoever's running their socials, who knows how to capitalize on a moment, because the content they produced was hilarious. They're like, we're going over to RedNote. If you don't know how to speak Mandarin, we're here for you. I would assume they captured a ton of users from it. So there are a few brands that, you know, for some reason were able to capitalize on it, but I would say a majority probably not.
Where do you think brands should go then? Instagram, Facebook, those are really their only choices?
I mean, at the moment, it's unfortunate because I think those are really the only choices, until something else pops up.
Why not YouTube?
YouTube?
Yeah,
Or
YouTube
maybe
Shorts.
Truth?
YouTube, though, it's really hard unless you know what you're searching for to find stuff right now. So they'll have to make some changes if they want to compete.
Yeah, I've heard the same. So well, this has been an awesome conversation. I think we're gonna move on to AI now, and who knows, maybe there'll be some tips and tricks that can be useful for people that are that are considering what the next options are.
I've got a quick story to finish it off though, Laurie, and then I'll do the segue. So I think it's about 2001, eBay background was yellow. It's kind of bright yellow. And then Google came out, I think in 2000 or thereabouts, and it was all white and clean, right? And then eBay thought, oh, that's the new thing. We're going to make eBay super clean UX. And everyone the next day was kicking and screaming and saying, you can't do that. The background has to be yellow. We're going to go and do something else. So then they put it back to yellow and they changed it like 1% every day for the next 100 days. And 100 days later, it was white and nobody complained and everyone was happy and everyone went on. If you don't get the point of that, the point is if I was, let's say Putin, because I want to visit China soon, but if I was Putin and owned TikTok, I would just dial it 1% every day. And in 100 days, you've got 300 million people are going to support Putin. And that's how information works, which is
Well,
why it's banned. I think the data is one thing, but that's the bigger thing.
that's a very, very valuable nugget to be using at my next gathering, my next party. I'm gonna throw it out there.
Yeah, it's a good story, that one. But let's now pivot to AI. Tony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
My opinion now is that, and I follow the sort of the foundation models, right? The LLMs, the Chat GPTs and the Geminis, and these are the core models which are now owned by the biggest companies. They're really expensive, and they're always getting pushed. The new releases coming out every day. There's always new stuff coming out and telling you how clever they are. They're better than a PhD, and they can do all this stuff. The new model which came out, I think it's one of those things where the latest one we have access to is O1 by OpenAI by ChatGPT. And it's sort of this cool thing now, which is better than a math PhD student. And I think for most of us, you kind of get that, and you say, "Great, I've got a prompt. What am I going to type in?" And I sit there and I'm like, I don't know, top 5 things to do in San Francisco. It's not a very clever prompt. Doesn't need to be very clever to answer that. They're really good if you're asking questions about quantum physics. But point being, these models are so good now that I think most of us don't need them to be that intelligent. So I think the gap and what needs to catch up are the other tools. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's the companies building off these models which exist and giving us these tools which we can actually use day to day. And I think most people aren't yet. Most of my time I spend just on ChatGPT or Gemini or equivalent. But as these tools and as these mostly startups get caught up, they're going to be releasing what's been available and giving us really cool stuff that we can action sort of today. Anyway, I don't want to talk all session. So what do you think about that, Tony? And I think you're going to show us a couple of the tools, right?
Yes, I agree. I think that the models that they're releasing, especially OpenAI, you're fine with, I think, of GPT-4. It's when people ask me if I had to use one platform or tool, what would you recommend? It's that, because it's the all-rounder. It's really good at a bunch of different tasks, and it's good enough. And I think the challenge that people have is there's no instruction manual that comes with these LLMs. It's like someone handed you a puzzle with no picture and you're just like trying to figure it out. So when I advise companies, the first place I start is let's sit down and talk about your workflow. Like, what are all the activities that you're trying to do in a day? And then let's identify the ones you want to hand off to AI, because it's not a natural process to think about that. And until someone starts interacting with these platforms and tools, it's hard for them to kind of understand what's a good fit for AI. So my advice to people is always just sign up. If you can, sign up for the pro version, because it's better, it's got more functionality, and start trying it out and see what you get. Because the more you use it, the more you just start to create this general understanding. You almost get an intuition about what works and what doesn't, what to put in your prompts, where you need to tweak them, and then your outputs get better, and it's kind of this self-feeding cycle of improvement over time.
I have a question about that, if I could. The pro version is the version that's $20 a month, right?
Correct.
But then there's another version that is a higher level.
Yes, there's an enterprise version that's $200 a month. I would say, if you're a company and you're looking at bringing that in for some very, intensive processing, that would be a tier that you might look at. But for your general solo independent listener, I think the $20 a month is plenty.
Okay, so the enterprise just creates collaboration. It doesn't give you any additional power, basically.
I think it gives you more credits, if you will. So if you're at a company and you are connecting to the OpenAI API and you're calling that API, there's a cost to that.
For API,
so I think
sure.
in the enterprise level, you get more.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But for 90% of the usage that we're talking about, the $20 pro version is really all you're recommending.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting trend is you've got Google and Microsoft, who also have their own, AI offerings. Microsoft, it's Copilot, and for Google, it's Gemini. So it used to be that if you were a Microsoft or Google user, you had to pay an upgrade fee to use these extra features. And it was about $25, $30 a month. Well, Google this week just announced that they're eliminating the price for Gemini, and they're integrating it into their Google Workspace. So now if you're a Google Workspace company, you get access to all of that basically for the same price. Microsoft hasn't made the same move yet. I imagine that they will shortly follow, because it's going to be impossible for them to compete if they don't. So I think the reason they're doing this is that they've realized they cannot compete with ChatGPT. Like, people are flocking there. And even if their company is using one of these platforms as part of their work suite, people still love ChatGPT. So I would say if you're using that as part of your company program, now's the time to get in there and experiment and try them out. Because one of the things that I recommend is, if you've got access to one or two, try them out, test them against each other and see what you get. Because they're, it's just, you got to find out what each of them are good at. And so now it's just easier to do that.
What do you think about Perplexity, Tahnee?
I love Perplexity. I think that Perplexity is probably giving Google nightmares, because they are capturing a lot of search volume and they're doing it really well. ChatGPT also launched their own search functionality. I don't think it's as good. I've tested both side by side, and the results that you get aren't quite as in-depth, aren't as interactive. And I find the UX more annoying than anything. So I tend to turn it off. And if I'm doing a search, like if I'm researching a paper or I want to understand a topic more, I always go to Perplexity.
I want to follow up on that. Christian, what do you think about the Perplexity deal with TripAdvisor and Viator?
Yeah, that was an interesting deal, and I think it's the kind of thing that should be happening, right? So for those that don't know, Perplexity is kind of this hybrid. It's kind of a search engine, but it uses AI. And what it does is just basically starts with a Google search, finds the top, whatever it does, top 10, 20 sites, summarizes those, summarizes the summaries, puts them in a single result, and then gives you all these links where they got the result from, which is probably, you'd say, how it should work. It's what Google's doing now. So the problem they have is the current information. And if you want to search the top 10 best tour companies in LA, you'd have to go and search thousands of websites and look at all the reviews, and it's a lot to do in one search. So now by getting a feed from TripAdvisor / Viator, they can get all that kind of fed to them. I assume like daily in some kind of cache, which they then kind of save, and they can do a quick search on it. So it makes sense. It's the kind of current information that these hybrid engines need. And by doing that, then they'll put the summaries from TripAdvisor, and they'll link to the TripAdvisor results as a priority. I wouldn't say exclusively, but I would say as a priority.
Can I ask
Is
a
my
question
guess.
about this? Because this is super interesting, but the last trip I tried to plan, I simply didn't have time to like go through everything. So I did something like this, but the results I was getting were just not great. Like it was showing me maybe like 3 or 4 star hotels or like a random bed I could sleep in. And I was like, where is it getting these results from? Like, Tahnee, have you seen companies try and implement AI like past just this kind of basic level of trip planning we have? And is it working? Or where are they really leveraging it?
Are you asking if the brands themselves are trying to optimize for the LLM results?
Yeah, I guess that's like a good starting point.
Yeah, I don't think so yet. And I think that could be what's causing some of there's lack of depth in the results themselves. And there is a lot of discussion around how you have to change the content that you have on your website so it's optimized for an LLM. Because an LLM is not like a human, they're going after information. So they like things that are more FAQ-esque. Because the way when you go into a search engine like Perplexity, you ask a question. So it goes out and it's like, who has asked this question somewhere and what's the answer? And they pull it up. Now, I don't know what the secret sauce is in terms of who they're integrating with other than TripAdvisor, because they announced that, but they're getting their content from a multitude of places. And I think we've all heard the stories of them scraping content, sometimes a little bit unethically. So, maybe they're scraping Google results. I think there's a little bit of a black box when it comes to the results. I don't know, Christian, if you have any thoughts on that.
I want to know what's wrong with the 3 or 4 star hotel, but we can come back to that. But yeah, they are using Google, right? They're using LLM, so they're using ChatGPT probably for most of their searches, and they're scraping Google. But then what is Google? Google's just a company that gives you links to other people's sites. They don't own the sites, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just they're using Google as a good place to index those results. So Google chose to do that and chose to put it out in public. So you can say, why shouldn't Perplexity be allowed to use that?
I think what would be really interesting is if the LLM signed an agreement with GDS, the Global Distribution System, because then they would be getting access to the widest possible range. But I haven't heard of any agreements like that.
I always wonder about how they commercialize these things, right? Somebody like a TripAdvisor, for instance, they obviously want to sell their hotels, they want to sell their experiences. So, in the past, you would go on to TripAdvisor and you see what they want you to see, right? You see, yes, they'll give you some content around the destination and they'll give you a hotel description, but they're going to sell you what they want to sell you. So I'm wondering, with this fact that they're pulling in Perplexity, or they've integrated with Perplexity, and it's very hard to say that, by the way, but is there going to be, they obviously must have some control over what shows, and will they be manipulating that so that they're sending the business to where they want to send it?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Perplexity announced a couple of months ago that they would be including advertising results as a part of their result set. So, I mean, again, very, very similar to, let's say if you're an OTA and someone pays for, the upgraded position, it's almost exactly the same as that. So it's pay to play.
Except that it's not stated, right? So I have a bit of a problem with this because it's a hybrid and it's pay to play, but no one's saying that. So at least at Google, it's very clear. Most people that still don't know, but it's clear to those that focus on it. But this one, it's it's not a clean result. You get
Well, it'll
into
be
the
interesting
person
to
who's
see
paid the
when the
most.
TripAdvisor invited to results start to come, because they're not really there yet. That was obviously pay to play. I mean, Trip paid Perplexity something to do that integration. But I'd like to move on. You've given us two tools that we all know about already, right? Like ChatGPT and Perplexity. You got more in your bag of tricks.
I do. I have many. I actually was just looking at, I track them all. I keep a Notion document with every tool that I've ever experimented with. I'm up to 119. It's a lot out there. And these are all AI tools. So I think given that we were talking about video earlier, just to stay on that theme, one of the things I really love about some of the AI platforms that are coming out is they're just making, as a marketer specifically, my life so much easier. And so if you are a marketer and you're working on video content, there's two I really like. One is called Descript and the other is called Opus Clip. And they do similar things. I think Descript has a lot more functionality. And what you do is you drop your video content into the platform and then it transcribes it. And what you get is the transcription on the left-hand side and then the video screen on the right. And instead of having to go in and futz around with cutting tools and dealing with a ribbon, which is the video, you just edit the transcription. You can add copy, you can delete things, you can move things around, and then Descript kind of takes care of editing the video for you. And they've also released what they call their AI Underlord, which it has a bunch of different features that help you do things like, you know how, because we're all on Zoom now, none of us are actually looking at the camera, so we're all looking off to the side. It has a feature where it will change the eye so it's looking at the camera. You can auto translate, you can add captions. So I really love Descript for that. And then on Opus Clip, if you are working on social media, so Maddie, you might have used Opus Clip, you can drop your long format videos into there and it will automatically cut them up into short clips without you doing anything. It just goes in
How does
and
it know the good ones? Like,
That's what I've had a problem with, Bruce. That exact statement.
Yeah, do you know the good ones, Bruce?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe a little better than what Opus Clip, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I've
You
tested
got to
this
try it first.
with Opus Clip, and we'll put in a long one, and it'll cut it down, and it'll tell me like, oh, this one's really optimized, and you can like virality or whatever you're going for. And I've tested it versus what we do ours, and ours is slightly better. I don't know if it's like the gut instinct that you just can't replicate via AI. I've not figured out why, but our clips seem to do a little better than what they give us.
That's probably true because you understand your audience the best, Maddie, but I would say for someone who's time strapped and it's not their entire job and they're just trying to do 100 things, when you sit through an hour-long webinar and try to pull out the clip, you have to watch the whole webinar. I mean, it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
So Opus Clip does help with that because what it does, it breaks them into chunks and you can decide, okay, it was maybe in this section, I'll just go look at the clips in that section of the talk and go and edit those. But you're probably right. I mean, it's not as good as a very good.
Yeah. So I have two things, actually, three things I need to say. One is I got to go because I thought someone else was going to get my dog to the vet and they're not. And I got to get my dog to the vet. So I'm going to exit and let you guys carry on. Number two, though, I would love to challenge you, Tahnee, to take this show of Experience This and let's put it into either one or both of these tools that you're talking about and see what we can do with it when we produce the final version of this show. That could be super fun. And number three, on Opus, why can't it learn from us, right? Where we say, okay, for Experience This is what we like to talk about. Everyone likes to give Bruce shit. Christian is the AI guy. Lori's the most experienced in the attractions industry. And so look for highlights that help us highlight this, this, and this. I mean, we should be able to tell the tool that, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's built into Opus Clip. I think you do actually have more functionality in Descript where you can train the model, you can choose the model that you're connected to. And I think as these models improve, the platforms that are built on top of them will also improve. Because the way it's doing this is it's using its connection to ChatGPT and it just sends off a custom instruction that says, read this transcript, transcribe this video, read it, and then tell us what you think are the interesting pieces. And there's no tuning in there that you can control at the moment, but who knows, maybe I'll talk to the Descript people and tell them to add that to their roadmap.
To the roadmap, yeah.
If I was like a government like Putin that owned a major like vertical video site that was about to be illegal, I would take something like the script and I would just point it at all the videos and tweak them all like 1% every day to
The
persuade the whole
yellow.
population. Just change one word here, one word there, right?
I have a question for you, Tahnee. So you talked a little bit about, marketing departments, pieces of the business where, what do we do now with our content to address the fact that we're, having to look at or consider the LLMs, AI bots, et cetera. And I understand there are various tools marketing departments can use to really identify the type of content they should be highlighting, keywords that bots are potentially looking for, as well as to understand what the bots, what's resonating with the bots specifically, for that particular website or blog or whatever the company's pushing out. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the tools that businesses are using that or should use in marketing to maximize their content for AI?
Oh my gosh, that is such a big question. I mean, you're covering the entire marketing workflow and tech stack.
All right,
But
so
I
let's
well,
go
I could start with
maybe.
search, right? So how do you find out what kind of content to create? And I think this is where some of the traditional SEO tactics come into play, but you want to keep in mind like how it's changing. So you could have changed the way you present your content. So I think the main tools right now are things like SEMrush, but there's also another one called Answer the Public, which I really like, and it has a free version that you can sign up for. And what it does is it shows you what questions people are asking. And what's great about that is this is how people interact with LLMs. They ask a question. So when you know the question, then you answer it, and your answer is more likely to pop up in an LLM. So I would start there. The second piece is I think people are in more places, and you need to make sure that you are repurposing your content for the channels that your people are using. And that can be video, blog content, social posts that are like short text. And there are a few platforms that are popping up. One that I like in particular is called Tofu, TOFU, and it stands for top of funnel. And what you do is you drop in your website, you drop in, say, a long format. So it could be a white paper. And then the platform, you tell it, I want 3 blog posts, an infographic, a video, graphics, and it'll do it all for you. Now, is it perfect? No, I think these all need oversight and maybe a little bit of tweaking and editing. But there's more and more tools that are popping up that allow you to be in more places. So I'd say doing those 2 things is probably going to get you 80% of the way.
That's good to know. And what about voice search? I mean, that's a growing consideration. Are there specific ways of addressing that to ensure that you're found by a
I
voice?
think, I think voice search tactics are similar to, AI or LLM search tactics. It's just that voice generally gives one result. So it's like you win or you lose in voice, and you want to make sure that you're optimizing as much as you can. There's a platform that just released called Scrunch AI that is built specifically to help you monitor and improve for AI search. It's not that you can't self onboard. This is an enterprise level application, but it's the only one that I've seen that's designed specifically for how do you optimize for AI search, which would also include voice.
Good stuff.
And what I can do is I can give you all the links to the platforms I mentioned, and we can drop them in the show notes.
Actually, that's a great idea.
I think
And
we're supposed to say that. Oh, great. We will link. Oh, put all those links in the show notes.
down below, whatever. Tony, out of what did you say, 118 that you've trial? How many did you have to pay for to try?
Well, what's nice about a lot of these AI platforms, they're using the, tried and true PLG approach. They're trying to get you in the door with a free platform. So I usually, if I'm just experimenting, I'll look for that first. And then if I find value, I upgrade. So I'd say 50% of what I've tried is a free trial. If there's no free trial, I will call the sales department and I get a demo because I'm one person. So it doesn't make sense for me to sign up for, a platform that's, a couple $1,000s a month. But the sales folks are always really amenable to showing me how their platform works and what the benefits are. So I would say 50% of the tools I now currently pay for in my stack.
Okay.
It does add up. I'm not going to lie. Like if you sign up for everything, it's like hundreds of dollars a month. So I have to keep going back and saying, look, I gotta trim down. I get some MarTech bloat going on.
Maddie, how do you see the content creators that are part of your army using AI? Have you heard about, like, these are the tools that we love that are really making a difference for us?
I mean, I do think they're playing around with the two Tahnee mentioned with video editing, because that is the most time consuming. And honestly, sometimes it's simply about having to watch the video over and over again just to cut out like the little breath pauses or when you say and it's like a 1 minute clip, but you're spending an hour or more editing it. That's where those tools become really handy. And then I have a lot of friends who podcast in the creator space using AI tools for that, because obviously that's a longer form of content. And so the editing just really greatly time-wise increases. So really good tools for that as well.
Maddie, what are you using at Mount, if anything?
AI-wise?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good question. I mean, we've built our own stuff within ChatGPT that we run for various things. A lot of it actually has to deal with content creation because brainstorming by yourself is really challenging. So we've built, we call them like social media bots, I guess. It's not like a scientific term, but we'll just brainstorm back and forth with the bot, and we feed it various creators that we like. And we're like, hey, analyze this video, look at the caption, look at the style, help us create a script. That type of stuff is time saving like no other. That's been really helpful.
It's a funny one with video, isn't it? Because video started out as being like the most like authentic because it's just a camera and it's pointed and it's live or it's like not edited. And I know there's always been tools to edit videos, but then here we are, and you could just plug something in to get rid of the ers and the ums, and then to maybe make my hair look nicer. Or there's all these stuff I can do, and we're going to end up in a place where there's nothing. And then maybe now the AI writes the script and maybe changes the background, and we're going to end up in this place where video is just as inauthentic as anything, which is kind of sad.
Well, I don't know if you guys have felt this, if you use AI to like help you write, I don't know, posts on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, or copy or a blog or something, but it still isn't 100% authentic feeling, like it's not your voice. And so, it can get you probably 80-90% of the way there, but there's still some work you have to do to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and make it feel like you. I don't know if that piece will ever be fixed.
I feel like it's getting better though. I've actually noticed in the last couple of months, I've been tuning my custom GPTs for writing and social media, and I do less and less editing because I don't know, because I keep feeding my samples back in as I write. And every week I'm like, wow, I'm getting a little scared. Like, it's making me obsolete. It's a little scary.
Tahnee, then I
ca-
need you to settle an argument here between Kristen and I, because you just said you're tuning your custom GPTs, which was one of my kind of forecasts for 2025, is custom GPTs are going to start to really dominate a lot of things. And Christian's like, well, how's a custom GPT different than an agent, which is his favorite thing to talk about related to AI. Can you help us settle that argument?
I know there's a lot of debate right now about agents and what they are. I think of agents as AI that can take autonomous actions. So a custom GPT right now is something I have to interact with. I have to give it a prompt. Like I design it, I give it custom instructions, and then but I have to interact with it to get the thing. An agent to me is I push a button, I say, go do your job, and it will go out and say, for example, one of the agents I'm trying to build at the moment is I want an agent to come in, read all of my emails, and then tell me all the things that I should actually go and pay attention to. Because I get 500 emails a day. And I'm still trying to, it doesn't do a great job, right? It can summarize things, but I want it to understand what I would find valuable. To me, that's an agent.
So do I win?
No, Bruce, you never win. That's not a
No,
that's not
I
a
did
thing.
win this one.
No, you did not win.
What are you
Tony,
trying to win?
yeah, it's Bruce is. I don't know why we still have him on the show, but
Bruce, I do think your prediction of custom GPTs becoming more prevalent will be true because they are so valuable. But custom GPTs to me are different than agents.
Yeah, they're different. I built a custom GPT. I think I call it like the Arrival event master or something, because I've been working on a variety of different events. So it knows what I'm looking for as I build different events. And That's my custom
I
GPT.
do
But
think your description or your explanation makes sense, Tahnee, in terms of the difference between, 'cause I didn't think of it that way, but now that you say that, it does make sense to me.
right, we have an expert that decided, right? So
I've settled the argument. Great.
I'm
My
good
my
with it.
my point is it's a fine line, and there's no like this is where this ends and this is where this becomes this. And I think even when we have like autonomous agents that do these long, complex, like, hey, create an event for me in Valencia and organize everything, it's never just going to go off and do everything. It's going to come back and ask you questions, and there's going to be back and forth. So I think there's never a clear line between what is when it becomes
Who knows
an
if
agent
Unless you
versus not.
design it not
it's
to.
never
I mean,
clear.
I think that you should have it come and check in with you, but you can actually build agents or automations now that don't do that. They just go do the thing you've designed them to do.
And they're
Yeah,
going to
if you
know
want.
what your needs are, and they're going to be smart enough to go off and do it themselves, right?
Absolutely, they can and they will. But it's like if you're booking a hotel, is it just going to go off and just do it and book it, or is it going to say, "I've done all the work, but here's three choices. You pick the last thing."
It'll do it. And there's an example live today. Google has functionality where you can say, go make a reservation at a restaurant for me. And Google, their bot, will go and call the restaurant and talk to the front desk and get you the time and then put it in your calendar. To me,
No,
that's an example of an agent.
no, I know it can, but humans take some time, and you, I believe, even though you said it can do that, I think you would still say to your agent, no, give me three choices. Don't just book it because I need to check. I don't feel like steak tonight. You're doing some weird like January thing where you don't eat food, whatever it is, but you'll want it to do some like last minute, give me three choices before you actually click the button. And the same with
But
a
what if I
hotel.
want, let's say there's a restaurant I've been dying to try and it's the only place I want to go. I
Fine,
can
then
say to
that's
my
fine. Yeah,
agent, you go
yeah.
find me a booking. I don't care when it is. I just want to eat there.
Yeah, for that, fine, no problem.
Okay,
That
I
is
want to, we're pretty much out of
instructive.
time. I'd like to tie these things together that we've talked about, video and AI. So for example, we talked about perplexity, and I think we all agree perplexity has a lot of potential as the search, one of the top search engines in the AI world that's going to make a difference and take market share away from Google. I just did a search on perplexity, things to do in New York, and got a map and got a lot of text, no video. So my question is, like, when is Perplexity, ChatGPT search, et cetera, going to start pulling video, and where's that video going to come from? Certainly not TikTok, at least in the near future.
Perplexity does pull video today if it thinks it's relevant to your search. Like I showed earlier my search result when I was just testing it out, and it had a couple of videos on Barcelona. I'm thinking they're getting it from YouTube because it's a YouTube video. ChatGPT doesn't pull videos at the moment, but I can't imagine they're not going to follow suit. I think if you are looking to, if you want things to do, a great platform to try out is Mindtrip, which I think you've already talked about Mindtrip.
Yep, we
because
had the CEO on.
There you go. So that,
Yep.
to me, I think they're doing the best job of having the map, having the content, the videos in a great layout.
Yeah, the reason they might not have content though is because on Instagram, they don't let you open that piece of content unless you go back into their app. Or you go into like the desktop version of their app because they don't want their content getting out there without you downloading the app and being in their system. So that could be a reason why Perplexity can't pull a lot of content.
I got 2 points, Bruce. One, I thought your idea of like tying this all together with the perplexity search and getting video results was just contrived, and I thought it was poor. And I think you could do better. Two, when you said that, Laurie was trying to speak, and it looked like you were just
I
talking
don't
over
even
Laurie.
remember what I was going to say.
Oh man!
Don't worry about it.
Wow.
See, I
Tough
beat
crowd.
him in the prediction thing by having Tahnee agree with me,
Really?
and now he's got to come back and do something like that.
Maybe this is a good place to end because we've been going on for quite some time now.
All right, you want to wrap it up, Christian?
Yeah, I don't have a contrived way to wrap it up like you, but we'll see. We'll try and get this video out as soon as possible because it is Friday. Well, it's morning where I am right now, and TikTok's happening on Sunday midnight or Saturday midnight, something. If it happens, if anything happens, and then Monday, who knows what the next president will do. So to be discussed, and I think it's been a great discussion. Two different subjects in one is really interesting sometimes, and they do all fit together, right? It's all basically travel, discovery, and marketing, which is what we all do in this space. So I want to thank Tahnee and Maddie and also obviously Laurie and Bruce as well. Thanks very much.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tahnee and
This was a
Manny,
lot of
thank
fun.
you. It's been great. Appreciate it.